Hi, this is a message to the skeptics, non-dualists, relativists, postmodern philosophers, anybody that realizes that the universe is made of energy, which means it's intrinsically dynamic. That things are changing, and yet still we ask questions like, "What kind of a person are you?" And skeptics constantly want to reassert, most skeptics, that things are not necessarily what they appear to be. But the real skeptic truth is that the question of what do it be is not a real question, besides for grammatical issues. Um, we're not asking, is a thing really what it seems to be? Is a thing really what it appears to be? The issue is, and this is the transition you have to make, and if you don't make this, then we're stuck. I can't really communicate to you or to myself ideas that are truly beyond this objectivist epistemology, because we're stuck with objectivist terms. And so we have to keep the objectivist framework while we're talking about it, and the objective framework um, makes some errors that make it impossible to make these coherent statements. So what is the question? It's not, are things as they appear to be? Are things really as they appear to be? That's not the question. The question is, are things really behaving as they appear to behave? That's the question. So, obviously this changes the tone of questions, and really quite significantly. For one, it makes the questions answerable, which is kind of a nice change. So when we see the sun rising in the morning, we're asking, does the sun really behave as it appears to behave? We never get the question of does the sun exist out of that. That's not the big dilemma. It's just, is there a more full explanation of the behavior? Same thing with like the will. Questions the will. Suddenly we aren't talking about does the will exist. We're talking about a certain kind of behavior. We're naming that behavior will, and we're asking, does it really behave the way it appears to behave? And the answer to that question is illuminating, because you'll see right away that, for one, I say no, but I say no, it doesn't behave as it appears to behave. There's further aspects to will that people don't acknowledge. For example, that it's much more constrained. A lot of what we think of as will is really justifying actions that came from wills that were unconscious in us, and so it's not quite behaving as it appears. But there's no question of, well, does the will exist? Because that question would mean, are there behaviors that exist that we call will? And yeah, there is behavior that we call will. We're just trying to look into more about the details of what that behavior really is. And so those are the questions, and it transfers all of these impossible questions like, is this really the way this thing is, into questions that can be answered like, is this really the way this thing is behaving? And it inspires the tests that you need to do in order to determine that. You need to provoke new behaviors to see if something's really behaving the way you want. And this is why predictive aspects of models come into play, because suddenly if I can predict the behavior, then my model is better, and I can test that by, does it really predict behavior? And if you put everything in terms of behavior, the logic, the mathematics of thinking works out. Whereas if you put it in terms of existence, it doesn't. And that's fine for those that think it does work out if you put it in terms of existence. But for those of us that already know that the world is dynamic, nothing remains unchanged, then we have to accept that fully into our system and start talking in terms of behavior. Cheers.